All right, let's have a look at what we're dealing with now, because very heavy rain blasting through Oklahoma City, I-35, Stillwater, 44, heading up to Tulsa, Moma, Oklahoma. I was there once for a tornado years and years ago. It was absolutely devastating. But I always think, when we're out doing live shots, I feel like we just, and the boys can, pipe in on this if they want to. I feel like we leave just a little piece of ourselves in each city we go to, and the
without question.
And the memories.
I know my producer, Steve Pederak, does for sure, but I can only speak for him on this one.
You can't speak for yourself on this one.
Can't speak for myself, yeah.
But so I remember very vividly being in Moma, and there was a home that was gone, and all that was left was a tub, and there was someone who survived being in that tub. It was wild. It was a huge tornado. So I always remember that town and think about you guys. Showers and storms, and this is what I do with, a lot of different experiences when we're out in the field, is think about you from time to time. So know that you're on someone's mind if you have been through some sort of severe weather. We could see some damaging winds, some lightning, some heavy rain with these. Dallas-Fort Worth, we're no stranger to hail, and that will be our biggest threat today. Out of these storms will be the hail, the heavy rain, the flooding rain, and also the damaging winds. Very tiny tornado threat, but it really just doesn't exist with the setup that we have here. As we go to Waco, Temple, Austin, all these areas are going to be wet. Jim?
Like two, Steph.
Games that we could see this year. Today, we have Katia. Now, Katia actually replaces 2005's infamous Katrina, which, of course, was retired after becoming the country's costliest catastrophe. Katrina first made February 3, so let's not obsess over, it's just a 3, I'm going to stay. They can do shocking things. So here's a track of it. I remember Jeff Morrow was in South Florida, and he was getting lifted off his feet from all of the wind that came in with that, and then this just exploded. But notice 5, 4, and it was a 3 at landfall. And yes, Louisiana got hit. New Orleans, those were the failed levees that caused all the flooding there into New Orleans, but it was the east side push that just decimated Mississippi. It was the earliest forming Category 5 storm. There was widespread damage as well. Look at Katrina here, Emily. 2005, July. That was actually the earliest. Katrina looks like it was the second one there. Widespread damage. Harvey was actually just behind that, 153, with all the flooding it did into Texas. But you know what I don't like about this trend? Notice the list. It's everything. 2002, 2012, 2001, 17. We're just seeing these getting more costly rentals. It seems like year after year after year.
Yeah, no question. My goodness.
Severe storms rattling the southern plains. Take a look at these dramatic images coming out of Texas. We saw a lot of hail, a lot of flooding, and a lot of big storms. We had the chance for more severe weather as we head over the next 2 days, targeting the southern plains and the southeast. Today looks like a big day, and we will continue to see it as we head into our Saturday. Welcome into this Friday edition of America's Morning Headquarters. I'm meteorologist Stephanie Abrams alongside meteorologist Reynolds Wolf and Jim Cantori. And Jim, yesterday the flooding was pretty intense in a lot of places in Texas.
Yeah,
you did it with a nice accent, though.
Yeah, well, yes, I tried.
You can find it somewhere on there. Here's a look at our basically eastern half of the country. Jim was talking about that MCV that's blasting over the center of the country. I want you to focus in on this. I know there's a lot going on here, and you have to really adjust and literally focus. I don't know if you have to focus lenses anymore. I think people do with those big professional cameras, but now the camera does it for you. You're holding it, you double tap in the middle, and it focuses in the front, and then you double tap, and it focuses just on the back. It's pretty incredible technology. This is where I want you to focus in. So we're going to double tap right here on the southeast. That is going to be our system that's going to ride up the coast and meet up with our system that's in the plains as we head over the next couple of days. We have had rainfall. Port Charleston, we flood so much here. It's just low-lying right on the coast, surrounded by water. There's just so much water that it all just bundles up right there in Charleston. By the way, you don't even need rain. If you just get that onshore push, you can get some flooding into Charleston. We've seen that before. And there is your massive rain. Today, it's going to be the Carolinas. So if you have a little vacay going on, then unfortunately, you're going to have to play card games maybe. I don't know if I haven't played a card game in years, but I do love a good card game. I feel like I was taught gin rummy as a kid and all those games, and I need to relearn how you play all of that. I feel like it's going to be a lost go fish. That's a good one.
Cribbage. I love cribbage. You ever play cribbage on the board?
No, I haven't. But I feel like, Jim, this is turning into like a lost art. When's the last time you played cards?
Well,
I got to get some cards now. Now I'm inspired. We'll see the rip current forecast here. Highest in North Carolina, but South Carolina will have moderate rip current, so be careful out there. And the whole big system that we've been talking about off to the west, that pushes east, and so it is going to kick off some thunderstorms from I-10 all the way up to I-20 tomorrow. And we can show you that some of those, Jim, actually could be quite rambunctious, especially as we head into the afternoon hours.
Yeah, maybe a shot of rain.
Absurd like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember the number.
She has so many houseplants, they've renamed her.
Well, we need it since they're cutting them all down, so we're glad Molly's doing that good work.
Oh,
I hope that they don't get jealous of the new baby. Sometimes like a dog does, you have to like slowly introduce the dog, you know, to the baby and everything.
That's true.
All right. In all seriousness, we're so thrilled for Molly and her husband and her whole family. Here is our big system that's going to be pushing eastbound. We've been talking about it, the rain coming into Michigan, and don't forget our system that will be riding up the East Coast. So it's kind of the two of them coming together into the Northeast. Clouds, showers, not ideal for your Saturday. I was thinking, well, maybe you could tend to your house plants. You got to trim them up, water them, you know, talk to them, because all we are really when it comes down to it is just vibration. So you put out good vibration, that's what you get back, first of all, and that's your plants will be healthy if you tell them, oh, you're so green, you're so beautiful. Which, by the way, you should be telling yourself, too. Maybe not that you're green, but all the other good things. Look at some of that cooler air coming in behind this system, dropping us down into the 70s. Reynolds?
All right, Steph, let's get you.
That's what Jim was mentioning. McCoy Field, MCO is the airport code, and that's McCoy Field. A lot of you think, oh, what does MCO mean? That's actually what it means. We are going to see showers and thunderstorms start to fuel up here over central Florida, and will continue as we head over not only the next several days, but over the next really midweek into the end of next week. Yesterday, a record 3.9 inches of rain fell in Orlando. That's almost the entire month's worth, and 1.5 inches of that came in 1 hour. Now, we still need the rain here into Orlando, so these showers that we're seeing will continue, notice, through the weekend, all the way at least through midweek. But here's the thing, it's rainy season, so things are starting to crank up for us. Mid-May through mid-October is when we have the wettest weather. We have the daily sea breezes, and by the way, this time period accounts for roughly 70% of our yearly precipitation. And why is it rainy season, May through October? Hurricane season kicks off on June 1st. Don't forget that. But here's just a great example to show you that we do get rain, obviously, in the first few months of the year. But once we hit May, June, look how it just shoots up through September, and then October, it starts to taper off. But that, of course, is when we start to see hurricane season starting to wind down. The end of hurricane season is the last day of November. So let's talk about the forecast, because we need the rain. Through Thursday, remember I mentioned it goes really kind of towards the end of the week. We're going to see 2 to 3 inches of rain here, especially on the east coast of Florida. It's dry. We need it, especially here into the west coast of Florida. And we'll continue to get it. Reynolds this morning is starting off pretty dry for us, but this afternoon things will start to fire up, and then it kind of won't stop from there. It'll just keep going and going and going Saturday, Sunday, into our Monday and Tuesday.
No doubt. Well, for
Coast there. Less than 2 weeks to the official start of hurricane season. Almost 8 months since Ian inundated and slammed into Southwest Florida. One utility company is introducing new technology to help speed up storm response.
That's right. Conlon Kennedy is the spokesperson for Florida Power and Light, joining us live. I'm so curious about this drone in a box. How in the world is that going to help after a hurricane?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me today.
What was that little plane, Colin, that's right behind you?
Kind of over your left
Is that
shoulder.
another drone, a bigger drone to do
Yes.
reconnaissance? Or okay,
Absolutely. So that's our fixed wing drone.
people have electric vehicles now, and without power means they don't get charged.
Yeah.
You've got a new piece of equipment that could at least help in that area.
That's correct. So we have our FPL Evil.
Concerned, knowing how evacuations go.
Oh, absolutely. So this is a really big deal, both in evacuating and coming
back in. Yeah, I agree.
I would think.
Well,
go ahead.
That's all right.
I know. I was like, wait a minute, whose turn is it?
Happy Friday.
Right.
What is the biggest lesson that you learned from Ian that you would say?
So absolutely, we learned.
For FP&L.
Well, we're all about continuous improvement. So we're ready to respond for this hurricane season. As you can see.
Person for Florida Power and Light, we certainly appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, Colin,
he mentioned the underground lines. I wish we could do that for the entire country. Everything just going.
Especially coastal sections or ones that get
with
big wind and things like that. It is hard in a lot of spots. All right, guys, stick around. Much more to come here as we get you ready to get into the weekend. We've got a cold front, but does it mean a mess everywhere?
As well. Now, in the run-up to hurricane season, we are reviewing the history of storm names that are going to be used this year. We have Katia as our K name, which replaces 2005's infamous Katrina, which of course was retired after becoming the country's costliest natural disaster. Katrina first made landfall. So let's talk more about Katrina and its path. You can see coming ashore, and then boom, right when it came ashore, it crossed over into the Gulf. This is when it was a Category 5. It was huge. I mean, the thing was massive in the Gulf of Mexico. And so when it's that big and you have the winds, it was just building up the surge. And remember, the bathymetry, the slope coming off the coast here, it's shallow. So you get all that water, all the waves to build up, and we had just huge surge wiping out essentially the Mississippi coast, Alabama, even Florida affected by it. New Orleans, of course, we had all of that flooding due to the failed levee. This was the second earliest Category 5 hurricane on Atlantic record. By the way, when it made landfall, I want to mention it was a Category 3 at landfall. It was a 3. So keep that in mind. It ultimately claimed the hurricane season that don't let your guard down. Oh, it's just a 3. Oh, it's just a 2. I'll tell you what, that eye wall is a Cat 1 in South Florida. I remember Jeff Moore being lifted off his feet covering it because he was right in the worst part of it. But look at that. Category 3 tops the list here at $193 billion. Harvey, by the way, Category 4 when it officially made landfall, but then Reynolds, it was just the rain on Houston. It was so many days. I remember just being exhausted from being wet for so many days.
Unforgettable event, no question.
Severe storms rattling the southern plains. Look at the dramatic video of the hail and the strong winds. We actually had a lot of flooding into Texas, too. And guess what? We could see more of the same over the next 2 days. We can see it into the southern plains and on into the southeast. Today, it's Texas all the way up into portions of Arkansas. Tomorrow, it's at I-10 and I-20 corridors. Welcome into America's morning headquarters. I'm meteorologist Stephanie Abrams alongside meteorologist Reynolds Wolf and Jim Cantori. Let's get right to Jim and take a look back at some more of that video that came in. Jim, the structure of the cells in Texas yesterday were really impressive. With some of those bigger thunderstorms.
Well, yeah, they're super.
So if the roads washed out underneath it, what's going on with that? Jim already talked about our MCV here blasting through the plains. And I know there's a lot going on when we show you the water vapor imagery. So I want you to focus in on this, because this is a system that's been wreaking havoc on us since, Thursday, I think it dropped into us yesterday. It was coming down from the Kansas, Oklahoma-ish area, Missouri area, and it's going to be riding up the coast. So if you live in the Northeast, pay attention to what we got down here, because this is literally headed in your direction. Past 24 hours, we have seen some good rainfall amounts, which we saw some flooding into Charleston. Even just that onshore push is going to help cause some problems there into Charleston for us. As we go northbound Wilmington this morning for you, it is not a good day for the OBX. That's the Outer Banks. If you ever happen to see someone's bumper sticker and it has OBX, they're talking about this, the Outer Banks, right here of North Carolina. Of course, a lot of people have heard of Hatteras with the Wright brothers and the first flight. But you see the little spin in the atmosphere. It's going to sit through the entire day here. Look at that. So it's time to break out the card games. Jim said cribbage, which I've never played. I thought it was a card game until you said there was a board involved. I didn't know there was a board involved.
It's a game of fives.
Mahjong. Mahjong's a big game that a lot of people play too.
Okay.
But
Gin
you're going to
rummy.
bring out the old games. What, Jim?
You said gin rummy earlier on?
Never
figured that one out. That was kind of a tough game.
Well, this is the time to read about it and learn how to play games. With the high rip currents, stay out of the water. We will see our front. This is our other big weather maker that stretches all the way up into the Great Lakes. Tomorrow, it's going to be sweeping through the southeast and the northeast for that matter. But watch as the storms really start to bubble up as we head into the afternoon. And some of them could be, some boomers out there and dropping some decent rain, Jim.
I think the wedge of dry air is going to crush.
If there's others, they're probably not thriving because that's the only one that gets watered.
Your hydroponics are crushing.
I am obsessed with hydroponics. My basil is like out of control right now. I got to trim them. You're right. That's true. All right. Here are the maps. If you've done any planting outside, then you're going to get Mother Nature doing the watering for you, which is nice. System number 1 and then system number 2, you're going to see them merge into the east here, especially for our Saturday. Cloudy and wet for a lot of us, anywhere from the eastern lakes to the I-95 corridor. So it's all going to come together. The good news is as we head into our Sunday, it does start to clear out. So we will see a really nice Sunday for us. A couple inches of rain. We can actually really use it in the mid-Atlantic. So I'm happy we're getting a little bit there. Cincinnati, we go from basically 80 degrees to look at that Saturday, Reynolds. You can't do better than that. 70 and sunny.
No, that is perfect.
And thanks to our virtual view technology, we can actually transport you to West Palm Beach, Florida, my old stopping grounds. This is where I grew up. Showers today will be popping off later. This kind of looks like the intercoastal to me. And I feel like we used to go rollerblading on the sidewalks. Remember rollerblading was a thing? I don't think it's a thing anymore. I don't know. Is rollerblading still a thing? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. We used to do it right there on the intercoastal. Anyhow, West Palm's running about 2 inches below average on rain for the year. So let's talk about how much rain we're going to see the next several days. We are going to be getting it here, and it lasts all the way really through a good chunk of next week. It is the rainy season, though, so we do expect to see more rain this time of year, mid-May through mid-October, and we get the daily sea breezes we all know about if we live there, and this accounts for roughly 70% of the annual rainfall. Let's talk about the annual rainfall, because you can easily see when that rainy season kicks in by looking at our bar graph here. And notice as we hit May and then June, things really spike up and it stays high and starts to drop off October, and then November you see really sinks off. So what do you think is happening during this time in the rainy season? Thank you, Reynolds. It's hurricane season, so that's one of the reasons that we get so much rainfall. We will see a couple inches. This is through Thursday of next week. We really need it on the west coast of Florida. That's where things are dry. Tampa, as you head down towards the Fort Myer area. And we will see some showers. Right now, all is quiet. Usually it is in the morning in Florida.
Roger.
And then you get some of that sunshine to start bubbling everything up, and you'll see the storms pop off here. And it's not too bad today. South Florida sees some heavier showers right over Lake Okeechobee there, and also right along the spine of Florida. But watch what happens as we go through the weekend. Saturday, Sunday, they pop back up, the diurnal heating. Into Monday, we are going to see more rain. Tuesday, I'm telling you, it really doesn't stop. A little low pressure develops here. Florida is really where we're going to see a lot of the weather all the way through our Thursday forecast. Tampa, we will see thunderstorms. At least it's not a total washout, especially in the morning hours. It looks pretty good. It's more of an afternoon thing. But as you can see, very likely above average in Florida, and that's the same as we look from the plains back towards the Four Corners. Reynolds.
Okay,
here, and we want you to get you and your family out there. And I'm talking about out into the national parks here.
Yes.
The National Park Trust and the American Academy of Pediatrics are hosting Kids to Park Day tomorrow.
That it is. Joining us this morning is Grace Lee, the executive director of the National Park Trust. Thank you for coming on to talk about this. And your focus on getting kids into the park. I mean, it can't be just to get them off of the electronics, which is a plus, but there's more to it to that.
Right. There is much more to it. And thank you for inviting me.
600 state parks.
Love it.
You've got public parks. How do you decide where to take the family?
Oh, there's so much to choose from. Well, if you go to Kids to...
As you know, we
Yes.
want to keep the kids learning. What are some of the lessons that they actually gain from going to the park?
Well, our park...
Like 30 seconds left. But if there's one park that you think of could come to mind, something we wouldn't know about it, does something come to your mind about that? Is there something place you could tell us that nobody knows about?
Yeah, just yesterday, I was at a little...
Make a great point. You don't have to go far.
Exactly.
You really don't have to go far. Grace Lee, who's the executive director of National Park Trust, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Be sure to stick around all morning long at 9:40 Eastern. Our passport.
In the history of the storm names we could see that we're going to use this year. Katia is the K name, and it replaces 2005's infamous Katrina, which was retired after becoming the country's costliest natural disaster years ago now. And I was there with Jim Cantori, and it literally, I remember Jim was saying, they were like, it looks like a movie set. It was hard to even fathom what we were looking at.
I mean,
when we saw that, it was shocking. So the path of this thing took us through Florida, blew up here. This is where it was a Category 5, and then was a Category 3 when it made landfall here into Louisiana. But all that push of water, that's where Gulfport and all of these cities here along Mississippi had big time problems. Now, Katrina here was the second earliest Category 5 to form. Emily was earliest in July. Now, Katrina ultimately claimed the lives of $193 billion. Harvey, of course, in Texas. This was a flooding thing. Yes, it came in as a Category 4, did a lot of damage. The flooding in Houston was just outrageous. But I want you to notice, then there's Ian as number 3. Jim, the fact that we're seeing year after year after year, it's not like, 2005, and then we go back to the 80s and the 70s. They're just getting worse and bigger and causing more damage.
Well, that's the thing. You've got bigger, more intense storms of recent years, and that